Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Big Bout Podcast. This is John Suntress. It is pretty amazing. I got to tell you, after the last few weeks of boxing between Ruiz and Joshua and Brazil and Wilder and now Fury versus Schwartz, my opinion of the heavyweight division has done a complete 180. Everything I thought last year prior to Wilder Fury 1 has been out the window because of the performances we've seen since then. Tyson Fury beat a bum, Tom Schwartz. Meatbag. His nose exploded all over his face. The referee was right to stop it when it did. He did what he had to do. He was able to duck in and out and make his Ali moves, and certainly was against a lesser opponent. But as I say in my conversation with David Schuster coming up, compare that to Ali against Alfredo Evangelista or Jean-Pierre Cooperman or Richard Dunn or some of the other lessers that Ali was able to really have flashes of what he needed, against those lesser opponents. But like Ali, when he's fighting tougher guys, he brings the grit. Well, I got to admit, Fury did a lot better in December than I thought he would against Wilder. Yes, Wilder, I think, was definitely exposed. And yes, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong to assume this, but after the Schwartz, fight, don't you think that Fury will likely do better when he fights Wilder again, if they make that rematch, when they make that rematch? I mean, it sounds like it's pretty much a done deal, but, boxing, I keep expecting to hear in the next few weeks that Andy Ruiz will not fight Anthony Joshua. I can't believe Al Heyman is sticking to this deal, and, they've already talking about November. A lot can happen until then. You don't want to take the car out for one ride before you go right back in the ring with Joshua. Well, maybe it's confidence. I don't know. I thought Joshua was the best of the three, Fury, Wilder, and Joshua, again, last year. Really up until this Ruiz fight. Still thought so. That's out the window. Deontay Wilder, yeah, great puncher. Unbelievable. The equalizer, one punch can do it. Can you land that one punch? Well, against the Tyson Fury? No. And again, I think Tyson, as he stays active and has more fights coming up, he's only going to get better. This is a very interesting time. I don't think it's a great time for the heavyweight division compared to, certainly the 70s, the greatest, decade of the heavyweights ever. But what I do think is we have a very competitive heavyweight division. I'm okay with that. Every former champion is one impressive win away from being back in the title hunt. I think all of them, including Joseph Parker, who fights this Saturday on DAZN. It's a very interesting time. So that's kind of the subject beyond reviewing what happened with Tyson and Schwartz and also the other fights from last weekend. Really, it's a question of where is the heavyweight division now? I had to bounce this off of someone, so I got in touch with my buddy Dave Schuster from The Score, Chicago Sports Radio, huge boxing fan and a guy who's covered many fights himself, and had to get his opinion on it. So that's the bulk of today's Big Bout podcast. I hope you enjoy it. Let's get into it now. My conversation with David Schuster about the current state of the heavyweight division and what's to come on the Big Bout podcast. All right, welcoming Dave Schuster back to the Big Bout podcast. A quick review of the Fury Schwartz card from Saturday night. And Dave, good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you, Johnny. And yeah, quick would be the operative word because did he even work up a sweat? I mean, my God, I don't think he even had to take a shower after that thing.
He did break up his nose, man. I can't complain about the stop, frankly. I mean, really, God,
no.
He was picking his nose out of his eye, Schwartz.
No. I'm not complaining about the stoppage of the fight. I'm actually, in retrospect, complaining about the fight itself, to be honest with you, because the guy that he fought. Right. And I hope I never see him again.
Tom Schwartz.
I mean, Tom Schwartz, Tom terrific not.
European heavyweight. Go on.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, he literally landed 6 punches. I mean, and I don't know how much money he got, but that's a lot of money per punch. And of those 6 punches, I don't think any of them did any kind of damage. Now, I'll give credit to Fury. I mean, I thought he looked good. I mean, he was in fairly decent shape. He did dance. He was on his toes. Mm-hmm. He did, originally in the first round, he was orthodox. And then in the second round, he went southpaw. And so, he did what he needed to do to take out a tomato can in retrospect. Sure. But I'm going to rip ESPN here for just a second, of which I really do like doing more often than not. I mean, when they basically are comparing him to Muhammad Ali, which they almost were in his prime, and that's just ridiculous. I mean, let's keep things in perspective here. He fought nobody. He did look good for what it's worth, but he fought nobody.
Well, but that was it. That was prior to the fight, and I would say, I hear you, man. I don't disagree with you, but don't you think who has been the dancer of the heavyweight division since Muhammad Ali? And again, I'm not saying that Tyson Fury is Muhammad Ali. Well, there you go. And I mean, and I do think that it's okay to lean in. I mean, that is Fury's strongest standpoint. He is in the mold of 70s Ali in terms of, staying out of the way of punches and stuff. I mean, again, not against the talent that Ali fought in the 60s, but I would put Alfredo Evangelista against Tom Schwartz, frankly, or Carl Mildenberger. I mean, that's the thing, man. You're right. There were a lot of super fights, but there were a lot of bums in the 70s with Ali, too.
Evangelista against Tom Schwartz. Thank you. No, that just made me throw up in my mouth. No, again, I will give credit to Fury. He actually looked good against a very, very, very inferior opponent.
Yeah.
But again, what I'm trying to say is, after the fight was even over, ESPN was just gushing over this guy like he just won the heavyweight championship all over again. And it just made me nauseous. And I understand why they're doing it. I don't like it. I mean, this is their house fighter. Exactly. They paid him a lot of money. I get all that. But come on. You're
today's...
talking to
Go ahead.
Well,
no, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, you're talking, I hope, to an educated audience, so you don't have to throw it, and I'll use the term, you don't have to throw the schmaltz on extra thick here.
No, Dave, but you see, and you're right, it was on ESPN Plus, but I do think that they were counting on, getting the casual fan hyped up, and maybe that casual fan has a friend that had ESPN Plus, or maybe they went to a bar that was doing ESPN Plus, because that's the difference, and that's why they've got their house fighter, the linear champion. They're going to make a big deal about the linear championship. In today's environment, just as fair of a claim as Deontay Wilder or now Andy Ruiz as far as a claim to the title. I mean, that's the thing. And also, Fury played to script, unlike Anthony Joshua. I mean, that's the thing. It was supposed to be just a tune-up fight. Everybody understood that. I don't mind the tune-ups in between big fights as long as there aren't that many. It's going to be interesting moving forward to see who Fury chooses as an opponent for the fall. And, I mean, I've seen them float Big Baby Miller as a potential name out there, but I don't think that makes sense. What I do think makes sense is this coming Saturday's Joseph Parker fight. And if Joseph Parker has an equally fast, impressive knockout win against Leapai, then I think there's a chance that he will be in the hunt, and I could see him, and I think he would be tailor-made for Tyson Fury. I don't know what you think about that.
Oh, 100%. I would 100% agree on that. And again, don't get me wrong. I understand where ESPN is buttering its bread, and I know they're beyond jaded, and I understand the whole thing. It's just, it makes me nauseous beyond belief because, I mean, very smart broadcasters, and I consider Andre Ward a very smart broadcaster. I consider Joe Testatori also a very smart broadcaster.
Yeah, I like him.
Tim Bradley also the same thing.
I think Tim Bradley's very smart.
They were just laying it on too thick for my taste.
But of our current heavyweight claimants, who is better than Tyson Fury?
Well, I mean, and now we have a chance. We talked about this in advance. All three of them fought around the same time frame, and now we can take a look back and say Anthony Joshua, was exposed.
Yeah.
Deontay Wilder with the one punch of which he's noted for knockout, and now Tyson Fury knocked out a tomato can. Does it really tell you of the three who's the best of the bunch? It doesn't, only because styles make fights, and they have to fight each other for the final answer to be delivered. To be honest with you, again, I'll give Tyson Fury credit. I just got to heighten the fact that he beat an absolute nobody who did nothing. He did nothing. He did nothing in the first round. He did nothing in the second round. He fell down after he got hit.
There were 6 punches, and I think it wasn't that he threw 6 punches. He did connect with 6 punches. And I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I also think that Wilder is the random element. Hey, or rather, Fury. Wilder and Joshua have been fighting regularly for years. Fury is the one that came from 2 years of inactivity and 400 pounds to where he currently is. I give him credit. I've seen nothing but improvement. And, I mean, if this were like, a stock market schematic, the trajectory would be moving up. Whereas Wilder, I think, is horizontal, and obviously Joshua is down. So I think activity, when George Foreman came back, I talked to him within 8 fights of his comeback back in the 80s before he fought Holyfield, when he was gunning for Tyson still. And I'm like, shouldn't he be fighting better guys? He's like, all I need is activity. Tyson Fury is that kind of fighter. It doesn't matter. This is good because he needs rounds. He needs to stay active. It was great to hear that they want him back in, by September or October. That's only smart too. Wilder will fight Ortiz. I think that's a dangerous fight. I think that's a very, very dangerous fight. Even 40-year-old Luis Ortiz or maybe 45-year-old Luis Ortiz. I don't know. But he's got fast hands and he's a lefty. And Wilder is the one that's going to have to show that he is upping his game from his performance with Fury last December. Whereas I do think Fury looked better. So all that said, with those 3 guys, and then you got Andy Ruiz, and we'll see what happens with that rematch. That's coming up in November. I mean, it's going to be a good fall, man. I mean, that's the thing. We really got 3. This is good. I went a total 180, Dave, from going, what the hell are we doing this year with the heavyweight division to now, okay, now I'm seeing some real fights and at least movement towards the right thing. And if everyone is committed to the fights that they are talking about in principle, I'm amazed. And I hope they happen. It surprises me in a good way that Top Rank and Al Heyman realized that making that Wilder-Fury rematch is in everybody's best interest. Strike while the iron's hot. It's been, for the casual fan, going back to last December, that's all they're paying attention to are the Sports Center highlights. And it looks very splashy. In fact, didn't you notice from the coverage of the Fury fight, they kept showing highlights of the first Wilder fight with Fury.
They did.
And it looked much more competitive in highlights than what we actually got. And it's like, this is what the heavyweight division is right now. If it's competitive, then I'm okay with it. I wish it were better. I wish the level of fighting were better. But I'm okay with it, given that everyone seems to be around the same level. Would you agree?
Yes, I would agree. Again, I don't want to take anything away from Tyson Fury because, again, I think he actually looked pretty good. And he moved, unlike a heavyweight, to be honest with you. He looked like He looked like a junior middleweight, I guess, moving around the ring. I mean, he's 260-some-odd pounds, and he was on his toes. Now, again, he didn't really, have to exert himself all that much, and who knows if he would have done that in the 7th, 8th, or 9th rounds if he actually would have gotten to that point. So I will give him some credit. I will not give him credit the next time he sings after a fight. if you're gonna do Aerosmith, at least have a song that I like. Sweet Emotion, Toys in the Attic. Trains keep a rolling all night long. So at least give me something that I like.
I had to turn the sound off as soon as he started singing. Seriously, I'm like, I don't need to hear this. That's
but more than a passing grade, he did look good. And yes, onward and upward for the heavyweight division. But boy, I cannot wait to not talk about this fight anymore because it was it was just a balloon popper, to be honest with you.
Well, and that's what makes even this weekend interesting as far as the heavyweight fight goes, because Leopai is there to be beaten. I mean, he's another guy that, a couple of years ago was a decent enough heavyweight contender. He already lost to Klitschko. He's lost his biggest fights in the last couple of years, and the guys he's beat have all had losing records. So he's kind of been packaged for Joseph Parker. We'll see. And the onus is on Parker. And it's very funny because, of course, Parker edges out Ruiz, and that's another reason why if he has a splashy enough win, I have a feeling that might be your October opponent for Fury, especially if it's a quickie the way Fury's fight was. So we'll see. I mean, really, Joseph Parker's in a really good opportunity where he doesn't, he doesn't have the, there's so much upside that you could sell without, real hardcore boxing fans going, yeah, but didn't look that great against Joshua, hasn't really shined that well. I mean, he's a former WBO heavyweight champion. He does have the win against Ruiz. Not bad. So if he comes off a knockout, I don't think it's a bad idea to try to match him up with Fury.
Well, actually, if Joseph Parker looks good on this weekend, then I will accept a fight against Tyson Fury. Hopefully he does. He does not excite me as a fighter, I'll be honest with you. But onward and upward in the heavyweight division, and I just want to see more competitive fights. And the Joshua Ruiz, of the 3 fights that we're talking about with the heavyweight champions, at least the Joshua Ruiz fight kept my interest. The first fight with, like we talked about, with Deontay Wilder was over before you blinked.
Right.
This fight, basically, this past weekend was pretty much the same thing. So of the 3 fights, at least the one that kept our interest for however many rounds it went was, of course, Anthony Joshua and Andy Ruiz. So kudos to them.
Well, and then the other big fight next weekend is Andrade against Sulecki. For the WBO middleweight title and stuff. And, Demetrius Andrade has been, calling for Triple G and calling for Canelo. One problem, Demetrius Andrade has been wasting most of his career. And also, frankly, hasn't had a splashy win to, I think, deserve Canelo right away or Triple G right away. It's kind of ridiculous. So he's also in, I think, a position of, all right, you want to fight one of these guys, show it. I know Oscar was complaining that Triple G should have fought Andrade. Why? There's no upside in fighting Andrade. He's younger. He's 31. He's not a spring chicken. And again, I think he's wasted a good chunk of his prime, frankly. But I don't think anyone knows enough about him. I think he's a who cares. He's lucky to have the WBO title, and I know he's a 2-division champion. But again, this is where your multiple belts don't help you, and you get a lot of decent fighters that are not greats winning title belts.
Yeah, there is one other fight coming up on the weekend. It's actually on Sunday as opposed to Saturday, and it was supposed to be Charlo against Harrison. Yep. Unfortunately, Harrison came down with whatever the injury was, so that fight will be delayed for somewhere down the road. Now, Charlo, I'm going to anticipate, and I don't even know the guy he's fighting, to be honest with you. I saw his name earlier today, and honestly, it escapes me at the moment. But Charlo's going to take it out on this guy. And we've talked about this in the past also. I really believed it wasn't Charlo's best performance, but I still think he eked out the decision, what should have been the decision in his favor when he fought Harrison. They gave the title to Harrison. Charlo really wants to beat the crud out of Harrison the next time they fight. Right. I believe he will. But in the meantime, he's going to have to fight somebody else just to stay active. And so that'll be at least something to watch come up on Sunday night, not Saturday.
I know. Isn't that weird? I know. I was doing the calendar math as well, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. It's on Sunday. But that's cool. Did you see the cruiserweight fight from Saturday?
I did not. Help me out.
Well, it was very funny. It was Latverian Maris Bridis against Krzysztof Glowacki. And it was part of that World Boxing Super Series. It was a semifinal fight. And, man, I'll tell you, it landed in 3.5 rounds. You really need to see the highlights because it was on DAZN. And in the second round, the referee. It is a Bird. His last name is Bird. Joe Bird was the old Olympic coach from the 90s. And, all right, hold on. Boxing referee Bird.
It's not Larry Bird.
It certainly isn't Larry Bird. Robert Bird. Thank you. Robert Bird. So Robert Bird is the referee. He's 74 years old. Second round, the Polish guy hits the Latverian, Bridis, with a rabbit punch, like square on the back of the neck. Not cool. Well, Bridis retaliates and literally throws a flush elbow to the Polish guy's face, Galecki. So Galecki goes down, face down, and he's milking it for all it's worth. Bird is like, come on, get up. So they keep fighting. He does legitimately knock him down near the end of the second round. Galecki gets up. There's like less than 10 seconds left. They start going. The bell rings. The bell has to ring literally, Dave, for 8 seconds before the referee realizes the bell is ringing. And during that 8 seconds, Galecki goes down again. Second knockdown. And the elbow in the face. They count. They give him a count. He gets, he moves forward. They stop the round. And then once again, Robert Bird is walking around the ring, and all the judges and officials are like, what the hell's the matter with you? You let it go too long. And he's like, I didn't hear the bell. Dude, they were ringing the bell like a fire alarm. I mean, it was so ridiculously loud, and the commentators even couldn't believe of it. So then Galecki gets knocked out in the third round, and Bridis wins. I can't believe that decision is going to stand. It's for the tournament, so it technically wasn't a title defense. So there was no belt on the line. But even just from a record standpoint, if I were Galecki's people and stuff, I'd be asking for a technical draw or a no contest because it didn't go 4 rounds. And honestly, Robert Byrd lost all sense of himself and what he was doing in that fight. It's unbelievable to watch. It is so flagrant. And thank God we've got the television technology now where you can get every camera angle. And there's no doubt about it. It was a rabbit punch, and then, man, he comes by with this elbow. And this elbow, I mean, really, man, it looked like wrestling from the 50s. Or a bad MMA, frankly. I mean, it'd be okay if it was MMA. But he threw, like, the biggest, sharpest elbow to the guy's face. Unbelievable.
Well, once again, the beauty of DAZN and ESPN Plus, by the way, is that you can go back and watch these fights. Oh, yeah. I was pretty tied up this weekend. I made sure to, of course, watch the Fury fight.
Oh, yeah.
But I will go back and watch these other fights, and I specifically will watch that one. And I guess as far as Robert Byrd, I guess it's okay to be a referee in boxing at the age of 74. If you could be a politician at the age of 74 and run for president or even be a president, I guess what the heck? You
I don't know, man.
Boxing referee.
Do you remember in Chicago?
Of course.
Do you remember Stanley Berg in Chicago, the old ref?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Great guy. He knew in his late 60s, all right, it's time to stop. I mean, honestly, I caught some of Stan's final reffing jobs and stuff into his late 60s, and he knew, all right, it's time. And I mean, that's Robert Byrd. It's inexcusable. And again, I think they were in Latveria. I didn't pay attention. I should look and see where the fight was held, because it was like an all Latvian crowd. And by the way, is it Latvia or Latveria? Because one is Dr. Doom's country from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and the other is an actual real country and everything. So
no, it's Latvian.
Yeah, Latvian. Thank you, man.
And I was being sarcastic about 74 is okay to be a boxing referee. It's actually not. It's a young man's sport, and at some point, Listen, maybe they should have the referees go through some kind of medical checkup before a fight as well. Seriously.
Hey, man, commissions are supposed to pay attention to referees, and obviously he was coming from out of town, so I'm trying to find where. I don't see a location of where it happened. Oh, there we go. No, it was in Latvia. Yeah, there you go. And he's an American referee. Well, again, so the Latvian Boxing Commission, the LBC, should be doing a much better job of policing their country's boxing. But this is what happens when you go to countries that don't necessarily run big time boxing in their countries and stuff. Again, there were a ton of Latvian fighters on the card, up and down. But yeah, it was pretty cool. And then there was another Sunday fight, I believe, and it was Saturday morning. I'm looking here. Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe was it? Well, the IBF featherweight title, of course. It was Josh Warrington against Kid Galahad. Of course, not welterweight great Kid Galahad and everything. But he lost a decision. Warrington retains the IBF featherweight title. But so that was on. I believe that was on early morning on ESPN on Saturday morning.
Yeah, I'm just laughing to myself, thinking, could I ever once in my lifetime just be a participant for the Latvian Boxing Commission? When they all get together, talk about it would be something like out of the Marx Brothers movies, to be honest with you.
Fredonia. He's the heavyweight champion of Fredonia. Exactly.
Right.
Rufus T. Firefly. Fantastic, man. That'd be great. Now that I'd pay money to see. Very good, man. Get Edgar Kennedy to fight him for burning his hat in the peanut stand like Harpo does in Dennis. See, there you go. We're showing our age, Dave. That's all right. But
I can't help it.
I'm excited, man. I got to tell you, like I said, I think a couple good weeks coming up with boxing, and the fall is laid out. I mean, honestly, I think we got good fights coming up, really, from either late September through at the very least November. I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and they'll add more. I mean, we talked about this over the last couple of weeks. From May until basically September, October, it is loaded with some great fights. And now hopefully there's no more cancellations. I know, like I said, Harrison canceled. I think there was one other cancellation that's escaping my mind right now. And sometimes they're legitimate, and sometimes, unfortunately, they're just not. Guys are out of shape, and they're not ready to fight, and they come up with some kind of fake injury, I'll be honest with you. But there'll be more fights added even after the fact, because they always want to close out the year with a couple of decent fights also. So, honestly, Johnny, from now until the end of the calendar year, we should have a smorgasbord of really good fights, and I'm looking forward to all of them.
Did you watch Jesse Hart on the undercard of Fury and Schwartz?
Again, I only had time for.
Okay.
I was so busy, unfortunately, with baseball all weekend that I made sure to watch the one fight. I will go back and watch these other fights. So I hate to say I'm a little negligent on watching.
The only reason why I mention him is it's Cyclone Hart's son, Jesse Hart, and he had been he'd been kind of struggling a bit at middleweight. He moved up to light heavyweight. Now he won a decision. Man, he looked so uninspired, and I mean honestly. Doug Fisher and I were talking about it on Twitter. Doug, one of the editor-in-chief of Ring Magazine, we were going back and forth. And I'm like, he goes, I love watching Jesse Hart fight. I go, I got to tell you, man, this guy is definitely a cut under all the great 175-pounders right now. And I don't know. I've watched his last couple fights, and he just doesn't seem to want to do enough to get beyond the win. I mean, he's really a guy that seems to accept a decision and should push himself harder. And frankly, he's had draws and losses when he doesn't push himself. So I don't know what he's waiting for, but he's he's certainly not Cyclone Hart. I'll tell you that.
Well, the 175-pound division is really interesting because you have three guys, and Kovalev is one of them, and then you got the two other, and I think they're both Russian, if I'm not mistaken. They're both undefeated, so maybe at some point all these guys will get into the ring together. And something tells me, because every time I see Andre Ward, you tell me if I'm wrong, Johnny.
I agree.
I think he's just in recess right now.
Maybe.
I think he's coming back. It'll be interesting if it's at 175. It'll be interesting if it's at cruiserweight. He even talked about a couple of weeks ago that he actually thought about getting into to fight Joshua.
Yeah, give me a break.
At heavyweight.
I understand. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think he's blowing smoke a little bit because that's just too big.
I think so too. But then again, you never know. I mean, with the right heavyweight champion, we all remember Roy Jones beating John Ruiz 10 years ago or 15 years ago. So,
that was the wrong heavyweight champion. Well, it was the right heavyweight champion for him, wrong heavyweight champion for everybody else, period.
Oh, absolutely. My God. I mean, and that's the thing. And it drove me nuts and made me kind of more frustrated with Roy Jones when he was, beating his chest about beating John Ruiz. And I'm like, okay, you're on the same level of, again, let's go back 100 years ago, when Mickey Walker drew with Max Schmeling. Mickey Walker, one of the tiniest middleweights ever, managed to get a draw against heavyweight Max Schmeling, and that's amazing and shows you how great Mickey Walker was. Didn't make Mickey Walker heavyweight champion at all, but again, an impressive performance. And I remember being on Sporting News Radio back in the day and going, don't get me wrong, this is great. He beat a heavyweight champion, not the heavyweight champ. Again, this is the problem with too many belts, and in the lighter divisions, it's only worse. We'll see how Jesse Hart fares. I hope that he fights one of the elite 175-pounders. I think it'll be a nice showcase fight for whoever that title claimant is. I don't see Jesse Hart beating him.
Well, I'll look forward to whatever those fights are upcoming, and I'll look forward to talking to you again next week, if that's okay with you, John.
No, sounds good, David. Thanks a lot, as always, and we'll talk soon. There you go. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Big Bout Podcast. Dave Schuster and I talking. We'll certainly review the fights coming up. We'll also get into more interviews with some authors that have written interesting books in the last few months and talk to some more boxing beat writers as well about what's going on the sport. I hope you enjoyed it. Big Bout Podcast, a production of Shaky Productions, copyright 2019.